UFC 325 is in the books, and it was quite a decent card considering that they just went with a retread of Volk vs Lopes, rather than letting Volk defend against a more fitting contender. Instead of the UFC giving Movzar or Lerone Murphy an opportunity to grab the belt off Volk, they just went with Diego Lopes, again. And to top it all off, Volk vs Lopes 2 went the exact same way as the first fight. Actually, Volk did an even better job at not getting involved in a firefight with Lopes, circling out of danger and not allowing Lopes to cut off the ring at all. Going into the main events, I figured that Lopes would take the fight to Volk way more than he did and pour on that aggression, but Lopes just stayed in first gear and could never really get going with his offense. Although Lopes got a flash knockdown in the third round, he couldn't quite capitalize and pin Volk down over the remainder of the fight, which is a testament to how crafty Volk is. He's a fucking stud. Ultimately, Volk won a very comfortable decision in Australia and the crowd went fucking ballistic, even though the fight itself was fairly unsubstantial. The first bout with Volk and Lopes was way more action-packed by comparison. It had more dramatic twists and turns throughout, and Lopes seemed like more of a threat as a new contender for Volk to face than this time round. Lopes was on autopilot and didn't really get going, so even though Volk won, and that's fucking awesome, especially because he's 37 years old in a lighter division, the fight itself was so-so. Volk didn't seem to take major damage during the bout, so hopefully he can turn around in the middle of the year to take on the winner of Movzar vs Murphy. He's already the GOAT at featherweights, competing at such an elite level still in his older age, but if he goes out and beats Murphy or a Movzar in this new title defense run, that'll solidify him even more as a fucking legend. I know he's 37, and Murphy and Movzar are both dangerous fighters with completely different skill sets than Lopes, which could cause Volk major problems, but it would just be incredible to see Volk pull it off. He still looked very sharp during UFC 325, although he was fighting an opponent he already faced off against. Volk was aware of Lopes' weaknesses and exploited him further in the rematch. Could he defeat a Movzar or Murphy? That's a video for another time. The co-main event today was Dan Hooker vs Benoit Saint Denis, and this was such a frustrating watch, man. In the opening round, Dan was doing a solid job of keeping BSD at range with body kicks, and whenever the latter did get inside, tried to level change and take him down, Dan sprawled out well. Dan kept this up throughout most of the first round, but then when I thought Dan was gonna take the round off him, BSD eventually got the takedown. He got Dan to the ground and maintained the offense even after they both got back up to their feet. BSD, even at the expense of getting caught himself, piled on the pressure and was basically running towards Dan throwing hooks. Some landed, some didn't. They were all wild shots, but that bit of offense won BSD the rounds. Probably. Unfortunately, things go even worse for Dan in the second round as he continues to get taken down and eventually gets grounded out by BSD. The fact that Dan and BSD were locked up in the clinch and it was Dan who initiated the takedown that got him finished. Fuck, man. I hope that Dan can come back from this and the UFC can match him up with a dedicated striker instead of the likes of an Armin or a BSD, as this wasn't a fun watch, at least for me being Australian. Although this was a fun enough card overall, I was gutted with the result of this co-main event and also the performance Taito Avasa had further down the card against Talison Teixeira. Now, Tai is a very inconsistent fighter. When he's switched on, he's a very formidable competitor and has some dangerous knockout power. When he's off though, it's fucking depressing. He basically has one round to secure a finish, and if he doesn't, the results can be disastrous, just like today's fight. To be clear, Talison Teixeira looked terrible, but he looked slightly less out of shape than Tai, and along with having some basic wrestling skills, he was able to secure the victory by decision. With the exception of Tom Aspinall, Curtis Blades, Pavlovich, and despite him being a blatant cheater, Cyril Gane, this heavyweight division is quite low level. When he first signed to the UFC, I thought Talison would wind up being a part of that new breed of heavyweight, the athletic, well-rounded heavyweights. This fight with Tai, though, disproved all of that. All I've got to say is thank fucking god for Quillan Salkilde for such an impressive performance to start off the main card. Last time out he stunned everyone with a flashy knockout victory, but this time Salkilde got the submission over fellow Aussie Jamie Mullarkey, and man, I cannot wait to see what Salkilde does next. He's a 155er. That weight class desperately needs younger, well-rounded prospects. Every time one of the younger fighters in the lightweight division goes in against a veteran, they always seem to come up short sooner or later. Poirier vs BSD and Gaethje vs Paddy are prime examples of this. Quillan though, he seems very promising, and I can't wait to see him back on a card soon. He didn't take much damage at all in this fight, so it should be a quick turnaround. Let's get Quillan a ranked opponent, with Zayam being the most likely matchup. Get Quillan in there quick. He has superstar written all over him, and personally I would love to see another Australian contender. What did you think of UFC 325 in general? For me, it was a 7 out of 10 card. UFC 325 had some solid matchmaking. I mean, it was a consistent quality lineup of fights on paper, but there were a handful of negative IQ moments from fighters that dragged the event down for me. But again, the UFC can't control the performances of fighters. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll catch you down the road.